Okay, for our first part of our repetition exercise, we're going to create a referent pattern using Photoshop and trying to create a seamless pattern so we can fill a whole page with it without having to drag out individual things if we wanted to keep a more regular rhythm, right? Um, and so I just saw really, a use of this right when I walked outside of the SJMC building. The Street Hawk food truck was parked there, right? And we see these reference to right eating and the University of Iowa, right, and the school, right. So we have these two reference going on, like food at the University of Iowa, right, and they've just picked these icons, right. Now they've picked just outlined icons. This would work with any type of icon. But we're going to do the same thing and use an outline icon in Photoshop. So in icon, you will have a folder called for pattern exercise where you'll find some SVGs that we're going to need to use: a hamburger, French fries, and a cake, right? So you'll have to go download those. And the first thing is we want to make a new file in Photoshop. And what I'm going to make it is 4 inches by 4 inches at 300 DPI, right? So remember, 300 DPI is our preferred for using, right? I'm even going to make it into our CMYK color, right? Because we're pretending we're going to do this for print. Because for our exercise, you'll be creating gift wrap, right? For someone or something, right? So 4 by 4 inches, I think, is enough of a swatch to repeat. I mean, it's kind of random. I just picked it. Obviously, you can pick different sizes, right? You just have to be aware, right? Then you're working in a 4 by 4 context, right? If you change to 8 by 8, then you have to be aware you're in an 8 by 8 context, right? And think about the size of the objects. But anyhow, we're going to create that new square here, right? And here it is. So now I need to turn it into a pattern. Well, how am I going to turn it into a pattern? And I'm actually going to work this way. Okay, so I have my plot, so I should probably start with some kind of a background. Now, I have this green selected, right? Obviously, you can go up to color and select any color that your heart desires. Maybe I'll go to a yellow pattern. Okay, will kind of be like that food truck. A little toned down yellow pattern. Yeah, maybe I'll pull it this way. Yeah, I like that orange. I'm going to make orange. I'm going to go orange today. So I've got to fill this background, and there's a tons of way that I can fill this background, right? I can switch to the paint bucket tool, and I need to make sure I have foreground picked, right? And I can fill that in. I can go into our adjustment layers and use a solid color adjustment layer. Really, it really is up to you at this point, because we're going to build a PSD file and save that, and then we're going to flatten it and turn it into a seamless pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use the Shift Delete button at the same time and say fill it with the foreground color, right? This is my foreground color. See, there's a third way, right? You could have used any of those 3 ways I've just told you, right? But I've decided I want to work on the background here. That's just my preference. It doesn't matter how you work. So we've got our kind of this baseline, right? We don't want white. White's the default of the canvas. We want some color to ourselves here. And now I have to put in maybe my objects. So I'm going to go ahead and one by one just drop them in. And now I usually say, hey, don't drop things in to a Photoshop document. But this is a different case. This is an SVG. And what is an SVG? It's a vector object, right? It's resolution independent. I don't have to worry. I can resize up, down, all around. Doesn't matter. So I'm just going to put that in at any size, and I'll hit return to get out of it. Go back to my desktop. I'll grab them both at the same time just to save myself some hassle, right? And I'll just kind of put them in, right? So now I have these 3 objects, and they're white, right? And we can do anything we want with these. Do we want to turn these into right, multiply doesn't work, so we want to screen them maybe, right? And still it just looks white. Maybe I'll use my opacity, right? We're starting to get a color there. One thing we can do is we can actually edit these. They're SVGs, and there's a lot of different ways. If I double click on them, they will actually open in Illustrator, and in Illustrator, right, we can go in and say, well, I want this more orangey color, right? I hit save, I close it, and I go back, and you'll see it automatically updated. Another thing that I could do, say with the cake, is I can add right, some kind of a solid color to it, and say I want it to be darker, and I have to merge these layers. Right, what I'm doing there is I'm holding down Command and Option, and I'm putting these layers together. Right, there's another way to do it where I can say whoa, I don't know what happened there. Control click and create clipping mask. Right, so this layer only affects this layer. I can actually double that up do it on the French fries and my hamburger, right? I had already edited it, so why don't I just try to see, and I'm holding Option and just duplicating these layers, right? And I added to that, right? Oh, the reason is this has some kind of screen, so go to normal. All right, so I've decided to change those colors this way, right? And it'll work. It'll still stay on it no matter where I move it, as long as I have that. You're really not going to move these layers. So now what do I want to do? I want to create some kind of a pattern, right? So let me take my French fries, and I'm going to pull out a copy. And now you see when I pull out a copy here, it the way this works with these color fills really isn't the super best way to go. But the way to then, if you're going to work in this capacity, right, you could have edited this in Illustrator. I'm going to actually grab both the French fries and its color fill and drag them into the new layer so that I make a copy of both. And now I have both. It really doesn't matter if I have both controls. I'm going to go ahead and make a version of a smaller French fry. I'm going to go do the same here. I'm going to go to the hamburger, grab both its fill and that. Oops, sorry. And actually, I'm going to just drag that into the. Oh, my Photoshop is just like, okay. There we go. Drag that into the new layer. And so now I have that again, and I'm going to go ahead and make this one a little smaller, right? Well, it's going to be a little casual in our thing. And once again, I've got this cake and its fill color. I'm going to drag them into the new layer to duplicate them. And this one I'll make a little smaller as well, right? And so now I can move these things around. And I'm going to start to work on a, what seems like a casual repetition, right? So maybe I'm going to, see, it's never good to double up with these color fills. Maybe this isn't the best way to show you, but I'm just going to grab the cake actually and move it here. I want this small cake to maybe be over here. I want maybe I want another copy of. So we're starting to get to this way, and I think it's getting real annoying to work with these adjustment layers. And so I think what I'm going to do to work on this is maybe a little bit lazy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all save this as some kind of a PSD, right? So I'm going to say, referent pattern, and I don't know why it says PDF, but I'm going to make sure it's a Photoshop file, right? PSD, and I put it on my desktop because why not clutter my desktop, right? So now if I need to really go back to these things and rescue these things, right, I'd be able to. Again, there's no real right or wrong way to do this. I'm just kind of annoyed with using these layers, so I'm gonna, maybe I'll keep working with them for one more minute here. Let me move this French fries to right about here. I actually just want to put distance between these things, right? So let me grab this little tiny hamburger, put it down here. Actually, I'm gonna move this cake here. Again, this is just like looking at trying to put some space in things, and I feel like maybe I need a couple more objects, but we'll just stick with these amount of objects. Whoops! I need a copy, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to make a copy here. Ooh, hey you! Grab the wrong thing. All right, pull out a copy. I've got this big cake right here, and I'm going to put them right here. I'll move this hamburger down to over to here. Move this again. This is just you just do it by eye, right? What do we want to do? Where do we want to put things? I'm gonna make another copy of this little tiny hamburger, right? So I grab the hamburger. I make sure I have its both color fills. I should have just edited the SVG. Honestly, it would have been a lot easier than using these fills here. Oh well, I guess I'm gonna have to put things next to each other. I guess 3 is just not enough. But let's. I really wish I edited these in Photoshop so I didn't have to double these layers. But you see what I'm doing is I'm trying to like fill the space so that there's a nice little repetition going on. And I could make another one of these little cakes here. Sorry, this is going to be a little rambling because I don't have a plan, right? And I want it to be here, and I feel like I just need to fill that space with something. So let me put in another French fry, I guess. So let's. And you have to fill all the space, but we'll notice big gaps. So how do I make this into a repeating pattern, and how do I make it a little more pleasing so that I can fill the space a little better? Well, Photoshop has this nice filter where I can offset these things, but it doesn't work when we have all these layers. So I actually have to hit save, And what I'm going to do is all these layers here, I'm actually going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. So if you know what happened here, right now I've gotten rid of all those layers. I can't really easily move those. If I needed to move these, right, I would take maybe the rectangle tool, right, I can grab that and move it, and you see I have a white space there. So I want to actually make this base color the background color, and when I do that, it'll keep that background color there, and obviously, right, I'm overwriting it there, so you don't want to do that. But say I wanted to move this just slightly. That's a skill that you'll need in this. But what we want to do is we want to start creating a seamless pattern out of this. So in filter, there's this other, and there's this thing called offset. So filter, other, offset. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work at one offset at a time, right? So you can see a preview. If you have preview checked and you want to have wraparound checked, right? And you see the way now that it's offset this whole image where it's starting, the top is starting to come and match, right? So I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to look at all these white spaces and say, I don't like particularly how these white spaces are set up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. I'm going to set that one there. I'm going to move this one down a little bit over here. You know, this is something that is going to bother me, right? We've already worked the top, this vertical offset. We're going to next time go this way. So let me add a cheeseburger. I can have cheeseburger over there, right? I'm going to go ahead and put it as close to the edge as I could get it. And right here bothers me, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll put some more cake over there. Right, and I'm actually holding Option and dragging out. I'm not actually moving individual ones. I should mention that Option usually doubles up your selection, so I'm really just I selected something with the rectangle marquee tool. I wanted to keep it there but have a copy, so I held down Option and I just basically dragged it out. And then I released it here, and I'm just moving things, right? And so I put that there, the cake's there. I mean, I don't like that space. Let's put one more hamburger in, right? So this little hamburger dude, and I'm gonna make him. I'm just looking at the way the triangle, it works there. So I'm actually gonna move that guy. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's fine enough. So again, I'm gonna go up to View, Filter, Other, Offset. I'm going to get rid of this, right? And I'm going to this time put 600 pixels on this. And you may be wondering, well, why did he pick 600 pixels? Well, actually, if you do the math of 4x4 at 300 dpi, right, that makes a canvas of 1200 pixels by 1200 pixels. So I'm basically just shifting it 50% so that I can see what's going on here, right? So I hit OK, and now I'm looking at this, and I just don't like where this is. I kind of wish I had a bigger one there, but I'll just ooh, I did nothing move. Let me grab that again. Make sure I have the move tool, right? And then I'll put that there. You know, I wouldn't say this is perfect, right? But obviously, what is here? I don't like I have too many cakes, so I'm actually going to fill this with the background color. So again, I'm going to hit Command Delete. That's like a quick key that you'd probably never ever in a million years know to do. Right, I could actually hit delete with this in the background, and that would have just worked too. I don't know why I didn't do that. But I'm going to grab out a copy here. I'll put this, I don't know, right there. Right, and so now I have this neat pattern. And so now what do I do with it, right? I've got this, and now I'm going to save it as referent pattern flattened, right? I don't want to overwrite my PSD in case I want to go back to those other things, but it's just a good idea, right? It's a good idea just to keep saving steps and things, right? So what I have to do here is I go to Edit, Define Pattern. Okay, and so what I'm actually going to do is save to my version of Photoshop. So now if you go to a different computer, this isn't going to be available. I'm going to say, let's define a pattern. And I have this whole just one layer thing selected, define pattern. And I'll call this, right, food pattern. Doesn't really matter what you call it. I'll hit OK. And now I've got this pattern saved. So how do I use this? Well, for the gift wrap, right, you're going to want to make a big swatch. I don't remember what it says in the exercise, but I'm going to go ahead and close this, right? I don't actually need that anymore. And I'm going to make a new document. And why don't I just make a regular letter size document, right? Doesn't matter if it's horizontal or vertical. We just want to show you that we've made a seamless pattern, right? So I have this pattern, this letter size thing, and I want to fill it with our pattern. Well, there's this paint bucket tool, which has a pattern mode. I believe there is also a edit. somewhere in here, somewhere buried in here, there's a way to fill with pattern. I think it's layer, new fill later, pattern. There's actually, I think there's even a third way to do it, but let's just use the paint bucket tool, right? So the paint bucket tool has two choices. You can fill something with your foreground color, right? So right here I have orange, we did that, but we can fill it with a pattern. So in here you'll see that these are where your patterns are saved. And we find the one we just created and simply just click somewhere. And there it is. I've got this great pattern now that, you know, and you may not be happy with it, right? And that's why we save the PSD files, because you may want to go back and be like, I just don't like the way these cake kind of really start to pull me out, right? But this is pattern making 101, right? And then I could be like, hey, food, you know, right, again, this is nothing you need to do, right? I'm just showing you, like, right, for your book cover, right? You'll probably put together some kind of a right, food truck, right? So these are the skills, right? So this is the skill of creating a pattern with reference, right? Because we're cueing off the fact that this is a food truck and we wanted people to know that it's a food truck, right? And we could have also added reference to the truck if we wanted to, the way the food truck had added reference to both the university and food, right? So these are the choices we can make as designers, and that is the skills in Photoshop to make a repeating referent background. Obviously, you could also do this with any kind of abstract shapes, geometric or natural. You can use this exact same method if this is your preferred way. But for a second video, I'm going to go ahead and use Illustrator to show you some fancier things that Illustrator can actually do with morphing first, and then I'm going to go into just making a general pattern.